the southern tip of the Americas, is a place where the map dissolves into a fractured mosaic of islands and fjords. Here, the Pacific Ocean crashes against the jagged coastline of Chile with a violence that has claimed countless vessels throughout the centuries. Within this labyrinth of stone and water lies the Chiloé archipelago, a place steeped in mists that cling to the land like a shroud. It is a region where isolation has bred a unique mythology, one that is not merely spoken of in hushed tones, but believed with a fervent and terrifying conviction. The locals know that the sea is not empty. They know that when the fog rolls in thick and heavy, something ancient wakes up within the deep. It is here that the legend of the Caleuche begins a story not of salvation, but of eternal entrapment. For the people of Chiloé, the ocean is a living entity that gives sustenance, but demands a heavy price in return. The fishermen who ply these cold waters understand that they are trespassing in a domain ruled by forces beyond human comprehension. Among the many dangers that lurk in the dark, Waves the Caleuche is the most feared. It is described as a magnificent three-masted schooner of immense size and terrifying beauty. Unlike the rotting hulks of ordinary shipwrecks, this vessel gleams with an unnatural, pristine quality. Its sails are not made of canvas, but of a strange, ethereal substance that catches winds that do not blow in the mortal realm. When it appears, it does so with a suddenness that stops the heart rising from the depths like a leviathan breaking the surface. The arrival of the Caleuche is always heralded by a sensory assault that contradicts the desolate silence of the Patagonian night. Witnesses report seeing a brilliant, intense light that pierces through the thickest sea fog, turning the gray mist into a glowing wall of white. This is not the warm, inviting glow of a lighthouse, but a blinding, harsh radiance that disorients and mesmerizes. Accompanying this visual spectacle is the sound of music. It is a festive, raucous melody of accordions and violins and brass instruments playing a tune that is both joyful and deeply unsettling. It sounds like a grand celebration is taking place upon the deck, a party that has been raging for centuries without pause. The juxtaposition of this happy music against the backdrop of a stormy, deadly ocean creates a profound sense of cognitive dissonance and dread. Those who sail the waters of Chile know that seeing the Caleuche is rarely a sign of good fortune. The ship is said to be sentient, a living machine, capable of navigating not just the surface, but the crushing depths below. It can submerge in an instant, vanishing beneath the waves without leaving a ripple or a bubble to mark its passage. This ability allows it to move against the currents, and the wind defying the laws of physics that bind ordinary vessels. It is a ghost ship that does not drift aimlessly, but moves with a predatory purpose. It stalks the channels and bays, seeking out the souls of those who have perished at sea, and perhaps those who are still clinging to life. The crew of this phantom vessel is the source of its most chilling lore. They are not skeletons or formless specters, but the preserved bodies of the drowned. Mythology holds that those who die in the waters of the south are claimed by the Caleuche. They are brought aboard and revived to a state of half-life where they are doomed to sail the ship for eternity. These sailors appear happy, engaged in an unending revelry of drinking and dancing. But their eyes remain empty and cold. They are trapped in a purgatory of festivity, disconnected from the passage of time and the grief of the families they left behind on the shore. To the observer on land, the sight of their silhouette against the glowing deck is a reminder of the fragility of life. However, the Caleuche is not merely a collector of the dead. It is also a tool of the living warlocks known as the Brujos of Chile. These sorcerers are real figures in the history of the region men who formed a powerful and secretive society known as the Righteous Province. The legends claim that the Brujos used the Caleuche as their personal transport and their vessel for smuggling illicit goods across the dark waters. They ride the ship to their secret meetings in hidden caves, protected by the supernatural aura of the vessel. The relationship between the warlocks and the ship adds a layer of human malice to the supernatural horror. It suggests that the Caleuche is not just a ghost story, but a weapon wielded by powerful men. The connection to the Brujos introduces a darker aspect to the lore involving dark pacts and terrible sacrifices. It is whispered that wealthy merchants in the port towns have made deals with the warlocks to ensure their own prosperity. In exchange for safety and wealth, they provide supplies to the ghost ship. Or worse, they offer up human lives. The Caleuche, therefore, becomes a symbol of corruption and the terrible cost of greed. It represents a system where the powerful exploit the supernatural to maintain their control over the isolated communities of the archipelago. The ship is the physical manifestation of these dark bargains, a glowing reminder that some debts are paid in blood. One particular account from the late 19th century illustrates the terrifying nature of an encounter with this vessel. The story concerns a young fisherman named Matteo, who lived in a small hamlet near the Corcovado Gulf. Matteo was a skeptic, a man who prided himself on his rationality and his skill with a net. He often scoffed at the elders who warned him against fishing too late or venturing too far into the channels where the fog tended to settle. One evening, driven by a need to fill his quota before the winter storms set in, Matteo took his small boat out further than usual. The sea was calm, that night uncharacteristically still, like a sheet of black glass, reflecting the few stars that dared to shine. As the hours passed, a thick fog began to materialize, seemingly out of nowhere. It was a cold, damp fog that carried the smell of ozone and stale seaweed. Mateo attempted to navigate back toward the lights of the coast, but the mist swallowed the landmarks, leaving him drifting in a gray void. It was then that he heard it. At first, it was faint, a rhythmic thumping, like the heartbeat of a giant creature. Then came the melody. It was a lively tune, played on a fiddle clear and sharp, cutting through the muffled silence of the fog. Mateo felt a chill run down his spine, not from the cold, but from the recognition of what that sound signified. He had heard the stories since he was a child. Suddenly, the fog ahead of him ignited with a blinding brilliance. The light was so intense that Mateo had to shield his eyes with his forearm. Through the gaps in his fingers, he saw the silhouette of a massive ship emerging from the mist. It was huge, far larger than any vessel that should be navigating those narrow channels. The sails were full and glowing with a phosphorescent light, and the decks were crowded with figures. The music roared over him, now a deafening cacophony of joy that felt utterly wrong in the isolation of the sea. Mateo froze, gripping the gunwales of his tiny boat as the massive schooner bore down on him. He could see the faces of the crew now. They were dressed in fine clothes that looked strangely dry despite the ocean spray. They were dancing, spinning in wild circles, their laughter echoing over the water. But as the ship drew closer, Mateo noticed the unnatural stiffness of their movements. One of the figures turned to look at him. The face was pale and bloated, the skin possessing the blue tint of a corpse that had been in the water for days. Yet the mouth was twisted into a wide, rigid smile. The figure raised a glass in a mocking toast, and Mateo realized with a jolt of horror that he recognized the man. It was a neighbor who had been lost at sea 3 years prior. Terror seized Mateo, and he scrambled for his oars, desperate to put distance between himself and the phantom ship. But the Caleuche did not move like a normal vessel. It seemed to glide effortlessly, mirroring his movements. When he rowed left, the ship drifted left. When he stopped, the ship slowed. It was toying with him. The music seemed to speed up, matching the frantic beating of his heart. The light from the ship illuminated the dark water around his boat, and he saw shapes moving beneath the surface. Shadows were circling him, drawn by the presence of the great ship, waiting for scraps. The encounter reached its climax when the Caleuche came alongside his small wooden boat, towering over him like a cliff face. A rope ladder was thrown down, hitting the water with a heavy splash. A voice boomed from the deck, commanding him to climb aboard and join the festivities. It was a seductive voice, promising warmth and drink, and an end to the hard labor of his life. For a moment, Mateo felt a strange pull, a desire to let go and ascend the ladder. The music was hypnotic, weaving a spell that dulled his fear, but the image of his neighbor's dead eyes snapped him back to reality. He grabbed his knife and slashed at the water, screaming his refusal into the night. In an instant, the atmosphere shifted. The festive music stopped abruptly, replaced by a low mechanical groan that vibrated through the hull of the ship. The glowing lights turned a blood red, casting the sea in a nightmare hue. The figures on the deck stopped dancing and lined the railing, staring down at him with zero expression. The ship began to tilt, not from the wind, but as if it were being pulled down from below. The Caleuche was submerging. A massive whirlpool began to form around the hull, sucking the ocean down with tremendous force. Matteo paddled furiously, fighting the vortex that threatened to drag his small boat into the abyss, along with the ghost ship. The water churned and foamed as the great schooner sank beneath the waves. The sails did not crumple, they simply slid underwater, still billowing. The tip of the tallest mast was the last thing to vanish, disappearing with a hiss of steam. Matteo was left rocking violently in the turbulent wake, the red light fading into the deep darkness of the ocean. The silence that rushed back in was heavier than before. He was alone again in the fog, but the feeling of being watched remained. He rowed until his hands bled, guided only by blind panic, until the hull of his boat scraped against the familiar shingle of his home beach. Matteo survived the night, but he was never the same man again. The locals say that those who see the Caleuche and live to tell the tale are marked forever. Some lose their sanity, unable to reconcile the impossible things they witnessed. Others suffer from a physical twisting of their bodies, a punishment inflicted by the Brujos for witnessing their secret vessel. In the case of Matteo, he retained his mind, but he lost his voice. He spent the rest of his days in silence, staring out at the horizon, terrified of the fog. He would never step foot on a boat again, choosing to starve rather than risk another encounter with the ship of the dead. The legend of the Caleuche persists because it is deeply woven into the cultural identity of Chile. It serves as an explanation for the unexplainable disappearances of sailors in a region where the sea is a constant threat. When a boat is found drifting empty, it is easier to believe the crew was taken by the ghost ship than to accept they were simply washed away by a rogue wave. It gives a form of immortality to the lost, suggesting they are not gone, but merely elsewhere, dancing on a deck of light. This belief offers a strange comfort mixed with horror, a hope that death is not the end, but a transfer to a different eerie existence. Furthermore, the mythology encompasses the creatures that serve the ship, adding layers to the horror. The Caleuche is often said to be accompanied by the Pincoya, a water spirit who represents the fertility of the sea. However, her role in this context is ambiguous. Sometimes she guides the drowned to the ship, ensuring their transition to the crew. Other times, she is seen dancing on the waves, and her orientation toward the land or sea predicts the abundance of fish. Her connection to the ghost ship ties the economic survival of the islanders to the supernatural forces they fear. It implies that the bounty of the ocean and the danger of the Caleuche are two sides of the same coin. Another entity linked to the lore is the Envunch, a creature created by the Brujos to guard their caves and secrets. While the Envunch is a land-based horror, often depicted as a deformed human with its head twisted backwards, it is part of the same dark ecosystem as the Caleuche. The warlocks who captain the ship are the same masters who create the Envunch. This network of monsters creates a total atmosphere of fear over the archipelago. Nowhere is safe. The land has the Envunch, and the sea has the Caleuche. The people of Chiloé live in a delicate balance between these forces, respecting the boundaries set by the supernatural. The physical appearance of the Caleuche changes depending on who tells the story, but certain elements remain consistent. The intense light is the most common feature, often described as brighter than the moon. Some accounts say the ship can transform into a simple floating log or a rock if it is in danger of being discovered by non-believers. This shape-shifting ability makes it impossible to hunt or track. A piece of driftwood floating near the shore could be the dormant form of the massive vessel waiting for nightfall to expand and reveal its true nature. This paranoia creates a landscape where every object in the water is viewed with suspicion. The speed of the Caleuche is another terrifying attribute. It is said to be able to traverse the entire length of the archipelago in minutes. This supernatural velocity allows it to appear in multiple places in a single night, spreading its legend across different communities simultaneously. Sailors in the north might report the lights and music at midnight, while fishermen in the south claim to have seen it just an hour later. This omnipresence reinforces the idea that the ship is watching everyone, that it is a guardian of the waters that cannot be evaded. There are also stories of the deals made aboard the ship. It is rumored that merchants who wish to gain favor with the Brujos must board the Caleuche voluntarily. They must participate in the dark festivities and pledge their loyalty to the righteous province. Once the pact is sealed, these merchants return to their towns with new wealth, but they are forever changed. They become cold and distant their eyes, holding the same dead look as the crew of the ship. Their businesses thrive, while their neighbors suffer, reinforcing the social divide and the belief that success comes from dark magic. The sounds of the Caleuche are said to carry for miles. On quiet nights, the wind carries the faint strains of the spectral orchestra to the villages on the shore. Elders will hush the children, telling them to listen not with curiosity, but with caution. Hearing the music is not dangerous in itself, but following it is fatal. The melody is a lure designed to draw the curious and the foolish toward the water. It plays on human desires, promising joy and celebration in a hard and rugged life. It is the siren song of the South, tailored to the weary souls of the Patagonian fishermen. Modernity has encroached on Chiloé, bringing electricity and bridges and industry. Yet the legend of the Caleuche refuses to fade. Even today, with radar and sonar and satellite navigation, there are reports of strange lights at sea that cannot be explained. Captains of industrial fishing trawlers have reported sudden anomalies on their instruments, ghost signals that appear and vanish in seconds. These modern encounters are often dismissed as equipment malfunction or atmospheric phenomena, but the locals know better. They know that technology does not banish the old powers. It merely gives them new ways to hide. The psychological impact of the Caleuche on the people of Chile cannot be overstated. It shapes their relationship with the ocean and with the night. It enforces a code of conduct, a respect for the unknown. Fishermen will pour a portion of their drink into the sea before they sail, an offering to the spirits to grant them safe passage. They avoid certain coves and inlets known to be frequented by the ghost ship. This deference is not superstition to them. It is a survival strategy passed down through generations of hard experience. The story of the Caleuche also serves as a cautionary tale against hubris. The ocean is vast and indifferent to human ambition. Those who believe they can conquer the sea or disrespect its power are the ones most likely to end up on the deck of the ghost ship. The eternal party of the drowned is a mockery of human life, a hollow imitation of joy that lasts forever. It is a hell disguised as a heaven where the music never stops and the wine never runs dry. But the soul is trapped in a cold, wet prison. As we look back at the history of this legend, we see a reflection of the harsh reality of life in Patagonia. The environment is beautiful, but deadly. The cold kills, the sea takes. The Caleuche is the manifestation of that duality. It is beautiful with its bright lights and music, but it is deadly in its intent. It captures the essence of the sublime, that mixture of awe and terror that defines the human experience of the natural world in its most extreme forms. To look upon the Caleuche is to look upon the raw, unchecked power of the wild. The fog continues to roll over the Chile archipelago, just as it has for thousands of years. The islands remain a place of mystery, where the line between the myth and the reality is blurred by the mist. The fishermen still go out every morning, hoping for a good catch and a safe return, but they always keep one eye on the horizon, watching for a light that is too bright to be a star. They listen for a melody that does not belong to the wind. They know that the Caleuche is out there, sailing the currents of the deep, waiting for the next soul to claim. If you ever find yourself on the shores of southern Chile, standing in the pre-dawn dark, listening to the waves crash against the rocks, be careful what you wish to see. You might hope for a glimpse of the magic that permeates this land. You might want to witness the legend for yourself. But remember that the Caleuche does not like to be sought. It chooses its passengers. And if you hear the faint sound of a fiddle carried on the sea breeze, Do not look for the source. Turn your back, walk away, and pray that the ship has not already chosen you. The ocean keeps its secrets, well burying the evidence of its crimes in the crushing black depths. The Caleuche is the keeper of those secrets, the jailer of the drowned. It sails on endless and timeless, a permanent fixture in the nightmares of the South. The music plays on, the lights shine on, and the dance continues. And somewhere out in the cold dark water, the eyes of the crew are watching, waiting for the fog to lift and reveal their next victim. The legend is not just a story. In the minds of the Caleuche people, it is the absolute, terrifying truth.